My fiancé, Charlie. My sister, Kendall. Kendall's boyfriend, Jack. Charlie and I have been together for 6 years and have lived together for 3 years. We met in college. Our relationship is awesome. I love him more than anything, and I know he's the one I want to spend the rest of my life with. We're best friends, we make a great team, and we're really happy together. So no problems there. Kendall and I have always been close. We've had normal sisterly arguments and whatnot, but I love her and she's family. I don't really know Jack that well, but he seemed like a nice guy, which obviously isn't the case, and we've all gotten along until now. Kendall and Jack have been together for 2 years. Their relationship is rocky. Kendall has called me countless times because of fights, breakups, and drama. I've always been her shoulder to cry on, and I've supported her through everything as best I can. She has gotten jealous of my relationship with Charlie, saying things like she wishes she could have a perfect relationship like ours, and she wishes she could have that connection with Jack. Recently, within the last 2 months, she started saying things like, I should just steal Charlie from you, and I wish Jack was more like Charlie. I think Charlie and I would be a great match. She started flirting with Charlie, which made him super uncomfortable, and overstepped boundaries. I was uncomfortable and upset with her behavior. We had a serious talk and she broke down. She told me she was going through a rough patch with Jack and wasn't handling it well. She apologized to me and to Charlie, and told me she knew what she did was wrong, it wouldn't happen again, etc. Charlie and I talked about it and we decided to forgive her. At the time of the incident, Jack and Kendall were still going through a rough patch. 2 weeks ago, Charlie invited close friends and family to dinner. This included Jack and Kendall. It was at the restaurant Charlie and I had our first date, down to the exact table we sat at. We had talked about marriage at great length, so I had a feeling. Lo and behold, Charlie proposed to me. It was perfect. I was so happy. I cried like a baby. Our family and friends congratulated us. Kendall seemed super excited. She gushed about how cute it was, started talking about the wedding, and hugged us both. The only person who didn't seem happy for us was Jack. He told Kendall that he wanted to go home and they left early. Fast forward a few days. Kendall texted me and she was pissed. She called me a traitor and a disgusting. I asked her why she was upset. She claimed I was trying to ruin her relationship and then stopped replying to my texts. I texted Jack and asked him WTF was going on. He told me that he was planning to propose to Kendall at dinner. At first, I felt bad because maybe he had planned something beforehand and maybe it was just a huge misunderstanding. But apparently, Jack wasn't even planning to propose to Kendall until we got to the restaurant. He saw how nice the restaurant was, our friends and family were there, and decided, hey, this is perfect. He thought it would help them out of their rough patch, which is a horrible idea because marriage doesn't magically fix relationships. But then Charlie proposed and stole his thunder. He didn't even have a ring. Charlie had been planning that proposal for months. He's had the ring for 6 months, made the reservations 2 months beforehand, invited all of our family and friends. Even the staff of the restaurant was in on the proposal. He put a lot of thought into it, and I don't think Jack's heat-of-the-moment decision to propose is more important than Charlie's carefully planned proposal. I'm actually upset that Jack would make something this special and important into something dramatic and all about him. I didn't apologize. Charlie and I talked about it. He agrees and doesn't think we should apologize. Since then, Kendall and Jack haven't talked to us. Which is fine by itself, but that's not the end of it. Both of them have been shaming us on social media, twisting the story to make themselves look like victims, and have even coined us the proposal thieves. Mutual friends, and even some family, are disgusted with us. They believe Jack and Kendall's story, even after I've tried to explain what really happened. As funny as it is to be called the proposal thieves, it's not so funny to have friends and family turned against you. I'm really upset that my own sister would do this. Charlie has been super supportive and sweet through this mess. We both agree that we shouldn't apologize and have been standing our ground. Honestly, after everything Kendall has done, I'm pretty much fed up with her. She's my sister and I love her, but after she tried to seduce my boyfriend and now this, I don't really have a desire to talk to her anymore. Which sucks, because we've always been close. I think Jack has turned her into this horrible, self-absorbed person, and it's just. I'm not talking to Kendall right now and have no plans to talk to her until we receive a sincere apology. Even then, I think I might limit contact if she stays with Jack. I can't wait to see what a mess actually planning the wedding will be. The people who believe Jack and Kendall's story are the ones who were not at the proposal dinner. A large amount of mutual friends who weren't there plus extended family believe the story. Our parents, Charlie's siblings, and the few close friends that were actually at the dinner do not believe the bullshit story. We just haven't made a post addressing everything / telling our side of the story because we wanted advice on how to approach it. My boyfriend of almost 3 years told me a series of white lies that to me seem more serious. Can't tell if I'm overreacting or if this is actually indicative of a bigger problem. My boyfriend and I have been dating for almost 3 years, living together for 2. We have a pretty good relationship, obviously with ups and downs, but we make it work and are happy. A little background on me and my boyfriend. I come from a single-parent home. My father was absent. My mother was and is by no means perfect, but she did her best with what she had. We were poor. Life was never easy for us, but we had each other. Since I was pretty young, I've wanted to pay her back someday. I've worked incredibly hard to be able to do so. I help her financially as much as I can and regularly pay her bills back / send her cash. I'm also her only living child now as my brother passed away 5 years ago, which basically left me to help her. I don't care, I love my mother, and the right thing to do is to help her when she needs it. But is stressful. This is relevant because my boyfriend described coming from a somewhat similar past, and it is something we have bonded over. Having the mutual experiences seemed to bring us closer. He told me he also helped his parents financially, and we would often vent to each other about the stress it brings. I am not one to confide in many people, so having someone who I felt like actually understood me was meaningful to me. So here is where the lies come in, and I need someone to either tell me I'm not crazy and this is horror, or that I am crazy and this isn't a huge deal. I'm fine with either. When we met, my boyfriend lived in a condo in a pretty swanky part of the city. I live in the US Northeast. He told me he owned that apartment / condo. I found this to be interesting / odd because he was 28 at the time, and I know this property is upwards of $650,000 on the low end, and he was in an entry-level job for only like 2 years, so the numbers just didn't really add up. Whatever, maybe he's good at saving. But then, since living together, I never once saw a piece of mail for a mortgage payment, electric bill, taxes, nothing. Not for 2 whole years. Very odd. Also, when we started living together, he didn't have his room rented out in the former apartment yet, so he was still responsible for that portion of the rent. He would send a Venmo payment to his mother on the 1st of every month for his portion. I don't own property, but I can't think of a scenario where I would Venmo my mother to pay the mortgage on a property I supposedly own. Getting more odd. He would then go to his parents' house for an afternoon and come back really upset. Usually when I would ask why, it was because they were having financial problems and he needed to help them out. I totally understood this and supported him. He literally has cried on my shoulder about this many times. He tried to start a company years back and ended up getting into debt somehow. He told me this debt was $17,000 and that he paid it off. I'm confused because I met him only 2 to 3 years after the supposed debt accrued back / company dissolved, and it was already paid off. He told me when he moved back home after the business failed, he was $17,000 in debt and living at his parents' house working at a minimum wage job. How someone with a minimum wage job pays off that much debt in 3 years, I'll never know. We got into a fight a few weeks ago and I finally had enough and confronted him about these things. He doesn't help his parents, they actually pay his phone bill, and this was all a lie. He doesn't own that apartment, he didn't pay off that debt from his company. He initially told me his parents helped pay it off and then like 3 minutes later, came clean. And said that his business partner paid it off, so I have literally no idea what the truth is there, and if anything, in my eyes. His parents are the ones who are financially supporting him. So now, I'm dating a 31-year-old man who doesn't pay his own phone bill, was lying to me and / or completely fabricating aspects of his life for 3 years. And then when confronted about it, continued to make up lies, and then came clean about them 5 minutes later. I'm obviously concerned that he could lie for this long, about fundamentally important things like our values, and so on. I sincerely thought I would marry this man. He seemed to understand me like no one else and to be a truly caring and genuine person. Now I'm having a hard time rationalizing actually planning a life around someone who would not only lie about their background and family etc. but also financial aspects. Aside from that, I now can't tell what is the truth and what is a lie. I've also noticed other things he has lied about, called him out on it, and he has denied it outright to my face. I see this as a form of gaslighting, as I know I'm not wrong, but he is trying to convince me otherwise. Am I overreacting? Is this a white lie that went haywire? Or is this actually a series of complete and utter bullshit used to manipulate me? And also, is it insane for me to actually consider a life with this man? 6 years ago, my son Matthew had a daughter with his now ex-wife Josie. I have always thought of Josie as my own daughter, so when they divorced 7 years ago due to my son cheating, I was conflicted and disappointed. Josie wasn't particularly close with any of her family, so my husband and I naturally took them in. Josie was an angel. She had insisted that we didn't have to lift a finger more than before we had taken them in, and though she was hurt, she kept civil around Matthew. My husband and I held a huge hand in raising their daughter Ruth, because Matthew remarried less than a year later and now has a 4-year-old son after disowning Ruth. 2 years ago, my husband was diagnosed with lung cancer. It was hard on everyone, especially Ruth. They were extremely close. She told him about her girlfriends and boyfriends before anyone else and has always wanted him to be the one to walk her down the aisle at her wedding. Matt rarely ever visited and didn't answer our calls, often saying that we had other kids, so it wasn't like my husband was dying lonely. Last night Matt stopped by to talk about inheritance. He never mentioned Josie nor Ruth and hinted that he thought he should get more inheritance than his siblings the entire time. My husband and I shared awkward looks until he decided to cut in. He explained that everyone would get a piece, but he'd focus more on Ruth and Bonnie, one of our other grandkids. Matt got angry and said that Ruth was just a bastard and that his son deserved more than her. My husband got furious after that and left the room, saying that he wouldn't include Matthew at all. Matt yelled back and turned to me saying that Ruth wasn't worth it because she'd just grow up to be a whore like her mother. I told him that I'd rather have her mother as my daughter than him as my son and insisted that he leave. I'm getting phone calls from Matt's wife and family friends saying that my husband and I overreacted, and he was just angry that we were playing favorites. To clear some things up, Josie did not cheat on Matthew. Josie and Matthew met later in college and Josie was known as a party girl. Before that, Ruth isn't the product of an affair, but we are planning on getting a DNA test because what Matthew said has gotten under Ruth's skin. She was at the house when this occurred and overheard it. When it came to taking in Josie and Ruth, we didn't hesitate because Josie is not from here. She and Matt lived in another country until he moved them here a few months before he got caught cheating, and they had nowhere else to go as Josie was a stay-at-home mom. I had no intentions of choosing Josie over Matt then and now, and I never discouraged Matt from visiting. I tried to make it very clear that we weren't picking and choosing when we took Josie in. We just wanted her and our granddaughter to be safe and have a good home. My fiancé and I moved in together shortly before we got engaged. Before we did, we discussed how we'd split the housework and bills. 50/50 down the middle with some wiggle room for when the other needs help. When we moved, it was into her parents' 2-story garage that they converted into basically an apartment. They offered a low rent, $700 total, and pitch in for the electric and internet so we could save money for our own place and wedding. My fiancé earns more than me, and that's cool. I'm proud of her. Before we moved in together, it always seemed like she was living paycheck to paycheck, and I chalked it up to the apartment she had prior having insane high rent. She stuck to the 50/50 arrangement at first concerning bills, but she missed often and I had to remind her about it. Post-engagement, she's back to living paycheck to paycheck, either missing or very late with her part of the rent monthly. The 2 utilities we pay, groceries, late with her car payment. Her parents have talked to me multiple times about rent and I've covered her missing portion to get us caught up. And then try talking to her. It always turns into her saying we should just move if her parents are going to hound us. I told her we're lucky it's her parents because anywhere else would have kicked our asses out. On top of that, I pay my own bills, do about 65% housework, arrange and pay for most of our dates and vacations. Gifts for her, pay most towards our pets. I've suggested a financial coach, but what kicks me is whenever we're around others. She boasts about being the breadwinner since she earns more. Goes on about the stresses of being the main source of income, all the hours she has to work to pay all our bills. I was letting it slide until few days ago we were at a get-together. She and her sister started up again about her being the breadwinner. Her sister said something to the effect of her ex-boyfriend had a hard time being with someone who earned more, and my fiancé went, "Good thing OP doesn't mind me bringing home the pay." I told her just because she earns more doesn't make her the breadwinner when she blows it all on herself and I'm paying most the bills. She's embarrassed now and keeps saying I made her look bad and got her in trouble with her parents, because they want to see what she spends her money on each month, but I don't think I did anything wrong. Last night I was ready to just postpone the engagement, as of this morning after a lot of talking and things coming to light. We are broken up. She insisted we could afford her purchases based off our total incomes. Her parents were under the impression she was also paying off my student loans, my car, my phone, and paying for our vacations. She didn't get evicted from her last apartment, but she was late with her rent often enough that they weren't going to renew her lease. So she didn't suggest us moving to a bigger apartment at her building. Biggest nope, I'm out. The monthly take-home amount she told me was what she earned before wage garnishment kicked in addition to mass debt. She's been doing some online stuff to make up for the money she loses due to that. I got the ring back.